This Temur Adventures deck that Chris is playing, Monty, is eerily similar to a standard deck of a couple months ago when certain cards weren't banned.
Yeah, there are a couple of notable band standouts here in this Temur Adventures deck. Lucky Clover and Escape to the Wilds making their triumphant return. And honestly, I'm a little scared for Arna as this Orzhov Auras deck isn't really planning to play against a deck like Temur Adventures. They are not great against cards like Brazen Borrower because it's not a destroy effect and it can really set you back if they have a Lucky Clover plus Brazen Borrower to get rid of multiple of your aura'd up threats.
Well, we do see two copies of Lucky Clover in hand. Thoughtseize is going to take a look at that and go, no, thank you. You can have one. At least that's
Might leave
one
both and take
problem.
the giant here.
Oh, yeah. That could be a good idea, too. But you don't like getting stomped in the face for 6 with 2 clovers down.
You do not.
No. Tough choice.
Yeah,
Take stomp. Good job.
it's really Arna looking at the immediate versus the long con, right? Because with double clover down on the battlefield, as early as next turn, Chris's deck can go insane.
Another Thoughtseize, though, gonna take a second look here in hand, sees the Escape to the Wilds. Gonna take the Lucky Clover. Another Escape to the Wilds, though, drawn for Chris. So he's certainly going to be escaping whatever situation he finds himself in.
Yeah, at this point, Chris would just love to see Lance for the next 2 turns, putting him in a position where he can actually try to put up a fight here in this matchup. We do see a Temple Garden from Chris. Yes, he is Temur Adventures, but in the sideboard, there's 3 copies of the medium pig Yasharn waiting as a necessary evil in this Jund sacrifice format that we find ourselves in.
Oh, for sure. Arne is assembling his game plan here quite nicely with a copy of Core Spirit Dancer down on the battlefield. Going to deploy that Cartouche of Solidarity down and finds a Claim to Fame. So that's one of the good ways that this deck has been able to just keep threats on the battlefield and keep stuff alive. Doesn't find a third land, though. So we'll hope to draw into that.
Yeah, and a bit awkward for Arna, that basic swamp, meaning that he can't even cast a second aura that turn. No Cartouche of Solidarity to keep the draw train going. And that means that, at least for now, Chris has some breathing room before the Spirit Dancer gets out of turn. But Chris really needs to find that 5th land for Escape to the Wilds before Arna presents too much pressure.
Well, we do find a third land here for Arna, as he will be able to get either SRAM or the Core Spirit Dancer down on the battlefield. But how much does he value getting the Edgewall Innkeeper off the battlefield here, do you think?
Basically none at the moment. I think Chris has demonstrated he doesn't have an adventure creature. If he did, it would be Brazen Borrower, and he can't cast it right now. It would just be Petty Theft, which Arne is pretty cold too anyways, looking at his board. So he's just going, I don't think you have an adventure creature. I don't care about this Innkeeper. I need to start drawing cards and get my engine going.
That's exactly what he's doing. The 6/8 swinging in here. One of the little ones is going to jump in the way to chump block. And an Alrund's Epiphany is not what Chris wanted to see. Oof.
Chris made a statement in his profile saying Alrund's Epiphany is so good he wanted to play the maximum copies. He has 4 in his standard deck, he has 3 in his historic main deck, plus he has 1 in the sideboard alongside 4 copies of Fae of Witches. So he is playing essentially 11 copies of Alrund's Epiphany, but this is not the position he wanted to see it in.
Oh, goodness. Usually it's the Adventures deck drawing a million cards, but the Core Spirit Dancers teaming up here to draw several cards here for Arne, and he can just keep going now. Finds another land. He's got another deadweight for that 1/1 if he wants to. Can get SRAM down on the action too. Thoughtseize could take away the Escape to the Wilds, which is something that could get Chris back into this game. Things are looking good here for Arne.
Chris really missed his window. He needed to find that 5th land in one of the last 2 draw steps. Instead found Edgewall Innkeeper and Alrund's Epiphany, which really weren't doing it. And now Arna just has everything he needs to keep putting pressure on Chris. Still, at any point, Brazen Borrower off the top, allowing Chris to Petty Theft away both of these Spirit Dancers. It could be enough for him to mount a comeback, but he realistically only has 1 more turn. This turn, he's likely chumping with this token, and on the next turn, if Arna even gives him the chance, he may just deadweight it, and next turn, There's just everything waiting for Arna on that side of the battlefield.
It's absurd the amount of cards that this deck draws. In for 12, down to 8 goes Chris Botelho. Not looking good here for him, and we're going to have to discard 3 cards on Arna's side.
Yeah, I don't think Arna minds too much.
Oh,
Could
no,
get rid of
this
the
is fine.
Sentinel's Eyes.
This is a good problem to have. This is first world Magic problems right here.
Yeah, this is not the I miss my land drops discard. This is the I ruin you discard.
Ooh.
This was the time. This was the last cast, and I don't think land would have helped here for Chris. He needed Petty Theft now. So this is essentially the best draw, and Arna's going to lead up with the Thoughtseize,
Oh.
but Chris is off to the races. Goodbye, Spirit
Oh.
Dancers.
Oh, goodness me. Gonna double up there with Lucky Clover, so goodbye Spirit Dancers indeed. We'll be able to get one of them back down on the battlefield and start reassembling his little engine there, but man, that was the perfectly drawn card to get him out of that situation.
Yeah, unfortunately for Chris, he's currently treading water because Arna's just going to be able to go land, redeploy 2 threats right now, knows that the best thing Chris can draw in this situation is a land for Escape to the Wilds, and even then, with 1 mana, he's not going to be able to do much. So I wouldn't be surprised for Arna to just play double claim from his hand right now and just return some creatures from the graveyard. So because he actually only has 1 Spirit Dancer there, returns 1, and that allows him to cast an aura and draw 2 more cards here instead.
Another
All
Brazen
right.
Borrower drawn at the top. Chris is sticking in it. Goodness me. The one thing that surprised me about this Orzhov Auras deck is that it doesn't run the Alseed of Life's Bounty or the Selfless Savior, which could help in certain situations like this.
Yeah, not only are they not in the main deck, they're not even in the sideboard. That is one of the ways that this deck would have to protect against Brazen Borrower. Instead, they've really opted for cards like Demonic Vigor and Kaya's Ghost Form in and out of the sideboard to protect against board wipe effects, but that doesn't really do much against Brazen Borrower, which is why I highlighted it as such an important card in this matchup. Unfortunately, as things currently stand, Chris hasn't really got the traction around the Petty Theft, so he is just continuing to tread water while Arne, he has every option in the world.
He certainly does. Just deciding what the best course of action here is. Looks like he's gonna just try and keep the card draw coming. Deploying the Sentinel's Eyes here, finds an Angelic Gift. And when these cards do eventually get bounced, he'll just do it all again next turn. So Chris really has to find something to keep him in this matchup.
Yeah, I think Chris's plan right now is try, if he can, to not use the Petty Theft for as long as possible, because he needs essentially 2 turns. He needs to Petty Theft this turn, leaving Arna with no Spirit Dancer on the battlefield, which means the next turn he's also safe from lethal.
Here comes Deadweight. Gonna make the little Lovestruck Beast, well, big Lovestruck Beast, into a littler Lovestruck Beast.
Yeah,
Draw 100 more cards.
Chris has given up on winning the card advantage battle. That is done. Now Arne trying to clear off this Lovestruck Beast, perhaps go for that Myers Grasp that he has in hand to remove it from the board for good. But again, the Petty Theft is waiting from Chris, and as soon as 2 mana is used here, Arna won't be able to end the turn with a Spirit Dancer on the battlefield, and that is the situation that Chris is trying to work himself into.
Let's see how much more Arne wants to commit to the battlefield here before he starts swinging in with these creatures. Oh, it's always just so tempting to just use up all your mana, but unfortunately going to get punished here by this Brazen Borrower waiting in the wings. Even more cards. You'll have to discard 6 cards at your end step. Nice.
Chris very happy to, I would have guessed just chump block here rather than going for this Petty Theft, considering I don't believe Arna has made a land drop, so he is going to be able to redeploy a Core Spirit Dancer here, and that's really risky territory for Chris, as that means that with the copy of Angelic Gift in Arna's hand, he's easily able to represent lethal next turn through this Lovestruck Beast blocker. So Chris now, by choosing to not take that damage and instead just block the Core Spirit, instead just Petty Theft the Core Spirit Dancers, is putting himself in a risky position where he doesn't have that 2-turn block that I previously talked about, this is a little risky from Chris.
So if he had chump block there, would he not just have been dead next turn irrespective because of the extra creature down on the board if he'd played the third Core Spirit Dancer that was in hand?
Oh, of course, there is still a 1/1 left on the battlefield regardless, so even if he goes for the Escape to the Wild, he would just lose to pumping.
What? How?
I got nothing.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do this all over again. Everybody, please just rewind your clocks. Can we just like get what we just said in the last round and just, have this come back all again? Because
All
this
right.
is exactly deja vu.
Haley, here's what's going to happen. Arne is going to use his entire clock, discarding to hand size at the end of each turn, and Chris is just going to win the match that way.
Cool. I look forward to that. Oh, goodness me. It's hilarious. Sometimes Brazen Borrowers are just cheeky little cards that all like to hang out on top of your library.
This is working out almost.
I mean, yeah, at this rate, he could even just mill him with the amount of cards that he's drawn.
Yeah, I don't know how many cards are left in Arne's deck, but that graveyard is quickly growing. His hand is very beefy. This is wild.
I love Magic.
If Chris wins this game, that'll be something special.
Oh my goodness me. I will, if he does win this, I have to get like a soundbite or something from him afterwards because I want to know what the heck was going through his head when these Brazen Borrowers pitched up 3 in a row.
Yeah, the Riley Knight interview at the end of this round, if Chris does win this game, which I really do not think he will be fairly legendary.
I think we're breaking a record here from Arne with most cards discarded in a single game.
2 hand size.
Yeah.
This
You
is
like
wild.
cards? I heard you like cards. Here, have some more cards. Oh, goodness. At this point, I mean, is Arne even thinking about a third Brazen Borrower?
Hey, I assume Arne is thinking that is the only thing that keeps Chris alive here, so he should be thinking about it.
Mhm.
But in regards to how he's playing around it, well, you see him just trying to make more threats, right? The 1/1, as you mentioned, was his out to potentially Chris playing in the way where he could just take damage and leave it up. Ooh, the 1 copy of Sajiri Shelter drawn. So I think that is the beginning of Arne really being safe against this potential petty theft here.
All right, so go to attacks. Just 4 damage coming through. Down to 4 goes Chris. As you mentioned, that Sajiri Shelter can protect one of these threats next turn and get him the win.
All right, let's do it again.
Bounce, it bounce, it bounce, it bounce. Nice, thanks. Unbelievable stuff here from Chris Botelho on the back foot in every single way possible, but just finding these 3 Brazen Borrowers back to back to give him a little glimmer of hope in this matchup.
Yeah, this is just so... All right, well...
Deals with one of them, but the remaining Core Spirit Dancer, along with the 2 tokens, should be able to get the job done here. There finally is land number 5. Why not? Let's just cast Escape to the Wilds and see what we find. It is a Edgewall Innkeeper as well as a Lovestruck Beast. Can make 2 tokens here.
Yeah, unfortunately,
But we're going to
Angelic
make
Gift
things
will
fly.
put an end to this.
Oh, yes. What an absurd game of Magic. That's
That
not
was
something
wild.
you see every day. All right, let's go to sideboards. I think you and I both thought we should be going to sideboards pretty soon. Nope. Oh, here we go. Right, so now going into game number 2, what is the game plan for Chris?
Well, Chris is going to press the submit button because Yashard, not very good in this matchup. Every other card in his sideboard is there for Fae of Wishes. So he wants them in the sideboard because he essentially has 4 copies of each of them in his main deck already by having them be in the sideboard. So none of those cards are going to be coming in.
And
Now,
for
for
Arne?
Arna, you get to just move some things around. You get to bring in cards like Duress because you want to try to take that Escape to the Wilds. You want to try to take that Lucky Clover. Those are the big problem cards in the matchup. You want to be bringing in those 2 copies of Fragmentize. Lucky Clover, that was the card that kept Chris in there for as
Mm-hmm.
long as it did. That was the card that really got things done. The rest of it doesn't really do creature really matters from this Temur Adventures deck. It's really the compounding of adventure cards that get the job done. Same with Myers Grass. It's fine as a removal spell to kill an Edgewall Innkeeper, but you don't really care about the card advantage Innkeeper provides, and you have 3 copies of Deadweight already.
Yeah, it's certainly not a battle that Chris is going to win in terms of card advantage, because we've just seen what this deck does when it has either Core Spirit Dance or SRAM on the battlefield. So let's get things underway here in game number 2. Take a look at the opening hands. Pretty good looking from both. Mulligan there from Chris, and I think Arne may have mulliganed as well.
Arne Kip to 7. It's a bit awkward as the only creature he has to start drawing cards off of is that SRAM, and Chris is ready with plenty
Oh
of
boy.
answers. On the other side, Chris's awkwardness comes in the form of no green mana, so some of his top decks not quite live yet, but at the moment his hand lines up extremely well against what Arne is packing over there.
Oh yeah, you see a certain stomp there, don't you?
You see a stomp, you see a petty theft, and you feel a decent amount of
Ooh.
comfort, though that Thoughtseize does help.
Oh yes, that Thoughtseize will certainly keep SRAM safe. That was a lot of alliteration there. As Thoughtseize is going to take a gander and see what is in store for him.
Yeah, if Arne takes the Bonecrusher Giant, as he likely may consider doing so, he can now just play SRAM and not worry about it getting removed immediately. If Chris bounces it now, great. If Chris waits, then Arne can just play an Aura, draw a card, see what Chris does. If Chris responds, then he replays the SRAM. If Chris doesn't, all right, I'll do it again. Keep testing the waters. What are you going to do? He's going to make Chris act, which is the power of this position here by drawing that Thoughtseize. He has all the information he needs.
Now, it's been a hot minute since I've played Adventures with Lucky Clover, but am I correct in saying Brazen Borrower needs 2 targets with Clover out in order to not fizzle?
Hey, well, the petty thefts would would resolve. Unfortunately, the Brazen Borrower would never go to the Adventure Zone, as it would be the copy resolving first. The second actual petty theft would not have a legal target, and that's the one attached to the creature Brazen Borrower. So he would get the bounce he's looking for, he just wouldn't have the Brazen Borrower left over.
Righto, gotcha. So Petty Theft does now get 2 targets as the Core Spirit Dancer joins SRAM. And off on an adventure, the Brazen Borrower goes and finds another one. If he draws the 3rd one off the top of the library, I'm gonna call hijinks, okay? This is just witchcraft.
Chris just demonic tutoring here, or I guess vampiric tutoring for Brazen Borrowers 2 games in a row. But I mean, game 1, what he really wanted was the land, and he wasn't able to find that. So, you know, there's a give and take here.
Kaya's ghost form, drawing another card. Onto the Spirit Dancer it goes, and it looks like Sentinel's Eyes will get attached to the creature here too.
Yeah, Deadweight, good draw for Arne, able to get rid of this Brazen Borrower next turn should Chris play it as some form of pressure, but the big problem for Chris is he's not doing enough. Arne's drawing so many cards every turn, and Chris just really desperately needs an Escape to the Wilds or a Fae of Wishes.
All right, let's go wishing, shall we? We'll have the mana to go for a wish and a Brazen Borrower bounce.
Yeah, looking at Chris's sideboard, obviously the main exciting card here will be Escape to the Wilds. We want him to draw it from his deck. Well, you may as well just tutor for it. The real question is, what does he want his second card to be? Is he looking for something like a negate? Is he looking for something like Alrund's Epiphany? What is the line here from Chris? He could even go for something like Grafdigger's Cage, but in his current position, Arne isn't really utilizing the graveyard that much.
No, he's certainly not. Even with Lurs as a companion, this deck never looks like it gets to the point where you need to rely on lures. It's got the claims, it's got the escape cards, so you can just keep this engine going even without lures.
Yeah, Chris does have the option of getting something like Whelming Wave here,
Hmm.
but I think from his current position, Negate may be the safest. Unfortunately, he might just die.
There's always that, yes. He might just die.
Yeah, because okay, if Arne leads off with Thoughtseize here, Chris
Mm.
will likely have to at least consider negating that, because if he doesn't, then Arne can just take the skip to the wilds. Chris is in a bad position. He could take this Brazen Bar and just potentially threaten some sort of lethal. So there's no really good options for Chris now if
Mm-mm.
Arne just leads off with that Thoughtseize.
I mean, there's also the consideration to just try and dump as many things on Core Spirit Dancer as possible and kill him.
Right, that's the big consideration. He knows the negate is there, so if he leads off with something like all that glitters,
Yeah.
that's likely going to get negated just because Chris knows that that's the easiest way for him to die. So Arne may lead off with some other enchantments first, try to draw some cards, and then bait Chris into using that negate on something before finishing him off with the all that glitters.
Hmm.
Drawing cards to make more informed decisions makes the most sense here to start things off from Arne.
Got a big old 7-9 in the air now. Finds a claim to fame. Do have a land drop here, so all that glitters on the stack. Will we see a negate here from Chris,
Chris
or will we go for the Brazen Borrow?
he has this petty theft, so he doesn't necessarily need to negate here. Uh, it is a bit risky if he does negate and Arna has another all that good layers that he
Mm-hmm.
just loses to this core spirit dancer while being to prevent it. So it's possible that from his position, Chris just says, "Okay, you do whatever you need to do. I'll leave up this petty theft for as long as I need to."
Yeah. 13-15 Core Spirit Dancer. Staring down a 3-1 Brazen Borrower. Seems a little unfair, doesn't it?
Just a little.
Just a little. Owie. 13 points of damage to the face. Down to 4 goes Chris Botelho. Ooh.
Will
Waiting for that
Arne
second threat to be deployed to get maximum value of a Brazen Borrower, perhaps, here.
Right, exactly. And part of it is, again, what we were talking about last game. Chris really wants Arne to end the turn with no creatures on the battlefield,
Mm.
because that means he's not going to lose on the next turn. There's nothing with haste coming out of this deck. There's no red sources that Arne can try to use fame on. So
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that he can use to give haste to a creature. And now with Escape to the Wilds and Negate, Chris may have stabilized this turn because Arne didn't cast that Thoughtseize.
Move to discard here for Arne. Has to chuck one of these Spirit Dancers in the bin, it looks like. What are we going to draw for Chris Botelho? If it is a Brazen Borrower, it's not. Okay, this is fine. It's
Go
Natural
time.
Innkeeper, which is a very, very good find indeed, having the second Brazen Borrower as well as the Fair of Wishes ready to get some cards off of that. But first things first, let's lead off with an Escape to the Wilds and see what it is we find.
Elliot begins.
Oh, goodness
Fertile
me.
Footsteps, 2 more lands, untapped, still able to leave up Negate and Stomp.
Oh, my
Oh,
goodness.
Ailey, I don't know, have you missed this? I haven't missed this.
I mean, it's fun to watch, not fun to be on the other end of, I can tell you that much.
All right. At least good for Arna. That Stomp is not castable this turn. The
Yes.
only basic mountain in Chris's deck already on the battlefield. But Negate is still up.
Yes. And another creature on the battlefield.
Yeah, playing this Fae of Wishes now gives Chris the option of returning it to the hand next turn and trying to go for another wish, getting 2 more cards from his sideboard, which would let him answer this board.
Claim getting back that Core Spirit Dancer. So now we're going to be in Card Draw City once again. Sentinel's Eyes being escaped. And here we go. What do we find? Deadweight. Great. Fragmentize. Hello. Okay, that's a
Actually
good
great.
answer to the Lucky Clover. No mana up to protect it either.
Yeah, goodbye Brazen Borrower. Likely with 1 land drop remaining, going to play one more one more piece of aura and card draw here, and then fragmentize away that Lucky Clover and feel in a decent position from Arne now.
Oh, for sure. But don't count out the adventure deck just yet. As Fragmentize takes care of the Lucky Clover. What can we find at the top of the library? It's just a forest. We still have Edgewall Innkeeper for Chris. And a couple adventure creatures to follow it up.
Yeah, Chris in an awkward position where, again, he's facing down these core spirit dancers, looking at Fae of Wishes as potentially the line. He does have access to 11 mana, so he could do something like return Fae of Wishes to hand, go wishing again, and find Whelming Wave,
Mm-hmm.
returning Arne's board to his hand. The big problem with that is you're treading water. You're not actually getting anything done. You're using essentially all of your resources, and at the end, Arne's just going to redeploy that board, draw that many cards, and let's do it again next turn.
Oh, he can cast Escape to the Wilds here.
Can cast Escape to the Wilds.
Ooh,
Would be leaving himself dead to
a flyer.
something that gives flying plus a card like Helios Punishment. We do see there's multiple copies of Deadweight in Arna's hand as well. So if Arna has a way to give this Core Spirit Dancer flying, which he may be able to do using Lurus plus Angelic Gift, and get rid of this Fae of Wishes, that would be a way to do it. Fortunately, he's a little limited by mana at the moment, so not quite there yet.
Thoughtseize is going to disrupt any plans of countering here, as it will likely get rid of this negate so that we can get shenanigans going here with Lurus and the Angelic Gift.
And I think this may just be game when he takes.
Oh, taking the Escape to the Wilds. All right.
Okay. So Arne did have a line available to him. He could have Thoughtseize the negate, leave Chris with just Forest, and he escape to the wilds. Helios Punishment could make one of these creatures unable to block. Deadweight gets rid of the Edgewall Innkeeper. He would have two ground blockers, meaning Brazen Borrower wouldn't be a viable blocker. And Arne could pump both of these Spirit Dancers up if he's able to get a pump aura off of one of these auras that he's casting in order to find a lethal out here.
All right, well, two more draws coming here. Edgewall Innkeeper is going to be dead weighted. What is on top of Arna's library?
Chris wondering if he's going to negate this dead weight or not. It wouldn't really work out for him, unfortunately, as there is the second copy of Deadweight sitting in Arna's hand, and that would make things a lot easier for Arna, as he would then have full information that he could go full steam ahead and try to find that pump aura.
Yeah. So just a couple of lands drawn off the Deadweight. Now, where do we go from here?
I would guess that Arna is next looking at Helios Punishment.
Try and get one of these blockers to sit down and think about what they've done.
Right, once again, drawing two cards. He's really looking for 1 mana enchantments here. Anything like Sentinel's Eyes or Cartouche, those would be ideal. And Chris going to start feeling forced to act soon.
Yeah. He's going to have to use the negate here, otherwise he doesn't have blockers for these attackers.
At the moment, they aren't lethal. They are only 3/5s. So again, Arna would have to find a way to pump both of them by 1 in order to present 2 lethal attackers. But you don't want to be in that position. You want to make Arna work a little bit more for it.
Didn't find an aura off the draws there. That doesn't help either. I was like, just put the dead weight on your own creature. No, that won't do anything. One more look.
Oh my god, so many lands in a row for Arna.
That's so unlucky.
At this point, Arna can't actually put Chris in a position where he has to chump block with both creatures. The saving grace for Arna is Chris isn't really doing much. There aren't that many draws in his deck that are good here, and he can't do something like set up a line where he bounces the Fae of Wishes, tutors, and finds something like Ugin to play it. So
Hmm.
he could potentially just, Chris could just block here and keep the Fae of Wishes alive because he needs access to that wish to try
Yeah.
to survive multiple turns.
So Chris is going to go down to 1 here if these blocks stay as they are presented right now.
Arne looking at the last 7 cards that he drew, 6 lands and a Fragmentize within them.
Oh boy.
Just if any of them was something that pumped a creature, was an aura, allowed him to keep going, he would have tried to present that lethal. But as it stands, Chris Botelho getting at least another turn.
Here comes Lurrus into hand, and a bunch of lands going to get discarded at the end step. Let's see what Chris draws. It's a land, so we do have 2 cards for Fae of Wishes to send away, and we can get Wishing to get these creatures off the board, hopefully.
Yeah, this looks like it has to be Whelming Wave at this point. I don't believe Chris has another option in his sideboard to get the job done here. Ugin costs a little bit too much, but Whelming Wave can at least buy another turn, though
Mm-hmm.
it may ultimately not be enough.
So Fae of Wishes bounces back to hand, able to recast the Wish Granted or Granted side of things, leaving up the mana for Whelming Wave. Anything else you'd consider here? Just taking a quick look. It is going to be Whelming Wave, and these creatures will get sent packing.
Yeah, fortunately, Core Spirit Dancer, not a Leviathan, even though it can get as big as one sometimes. Obviously, it goes without saying that Arna's next draw was a Sentinel's Eyes, so, at the end of the 8 lands and 1 Fragmentized, the card he was actually looking for is just sitting there. But I don't think Arna's too concerned right now. Yes, there are draws for Chris that can be problematic, but fortunately, now that he discarded both of those lands, he doesn't have the line available to him to find another Fae of Wishes and go Granted for Ugin. So
Look at this.
can't do it. It's too much.
Lurrus is in heaven. That cat's just like, oh yes, look at all the things I've stolen. It's like when your cat goes for a walk and brings back your neighbor's keys or something, It's kind of like that situation.
I've brought you a gift.
Yes. Do you like it? Oh my goodness. So Arne just piling on the pressure here. I don't know if there's anything that Chris could do to get out of this pickle that he's found himself in now.
It starts with Escape to the Wilds. Edgewall Innkeeper provides some redraws, potentially possible, but it's going to be really tough. I think he needs to just hope that this finds him something.
All right,
I
Brazen
don't know what that
Borrower.
something is.
Come on, you can do it. Let's see what you got.
I think it is worth consideration here from Chris's point of view to play the Beanstalk Giant over the Brazen Borrower. There's less things he can cast by doing so, but he will still have access to all of his 2 mana adventure cards.
Mm-hmm.
The big problem is he needs 4 blockers, and right now he's only presenting 3. So even if he finds something to interact with one of these creatures, he will still be dead to the first pump aura Arne plays on Spirit Dancer, which he has in his graveyard, and Chris is aware of it.
Unfortunately, finding a Triumph off the top of the library is going to have to cycle here. I don't think you'll have enough mana to do another Granted, so...
It's Stomp, Petty Theft, or Bust.
For a 1/1? No. Lucky Clover off the top of the library. That isn't going to cut it here for Chris, unfortunately. And Arne Huschenbeth is going to win in a very convincing 2-0 against Temur Adventures. Orzhov Aura is so strong, money.
Yeah, the disruptive power of this deck just keeps shining through the specific build that Arne and his team have brought